1986.
A whole bunch of little things happened.
Is it enough?
Yes!
Exhilarating. It's amazing. It's so clutch.
Yes, sir!
In 1986, Greg Norman did something no golfer had ever done before, and no golfer has ever done since. He led all 4 major championships after 54 holes: the Masters, the US Open, the Open Championship, and the PGA Championship. Heading into Sunday, in every single one of the 4 biggest tournaments in golf, the Great White Shark was standing alone at the top of the leaderboard. He was ranked number 1 in the world. He was the leading money winner on the PGA Tour. He was, by every measure, the most dominant force in the game. And before the final round of the PGA Championship, the last tournament of the season, with a 4-shot lead, a course he believed was made for him, and with the whole golf world watching, he told the press exactly what he thought was going to happen. "This course sets up perfectly for me," he said.
I had my mind set that I wanted to shoot 65 or better.
So why did he shoot a 76? To understand that, you need to understand where Greg Norman came from, because here's the thing nobody ever talks about. He almost never played golf at all. He was born in Mount Isa, Queensland, a remote mining town in the Australian outback. Not a country club, not a golf academy. It was trademarked by red dust, open sky, and it was the kind of place that produces men who are quietly, deeply competitive about everything. He didn't pick up a golf club until he was 15 years old. His mother, Toni, was a single-figure handicapper. She let him caddy for her, and she taught him the basics. Within 18 months, he had gone from a 27 handicap to a scratch golfer. In under 5 years, he was a professional. In the conversation about great athletes and which ones were naturally made for the game, Greg Norman sits at the top of that list. His swing was violent and powerful. His game was aggressive and attacking. He played golf the way a shark hunts, relentlessly, without mercy, always moving forward and always going for the kill. Never circling, never waiting, always forward.
He was a rock star.
Long blonde hair, perfect shape, hit it 100 miles.
Norman was the man for quite a long time.
So much aggression, determination, and charisma.
By 1986, he was terrorizing the European and PGA Tours. He was the most dangerous golfer on the planet. But the ocean was about to start pushing back against the Great White Shark. In April, Norman entered the final round of the Masters with a 1-shot lead. He was on the doorstep of his first green jacket. Now, going into Sunday, every person watching assumed the story was going to be about Greg Norman. They were right, but just not in the way anyone expected. Because what happened on that Sunday at Augusta had almost nothing to do with Norman at all. A 46-year-old Jack Nicklaus, a man most people had already written off, a man who had no business being in contention, went out and shot a 30 on the back 9.
After a crisply struck 4-iron, the whole day changed.
And he's got a very, very good chance.
The roars were deafening.
Yes, sir! The battle is joined. There's life in the old bear yet.
It's 9 holes of golf the world still talks about today. An eagle, 5 birdies, 1 bogey. The galleries at Augusta were losing their minds. You could hear the roars from halfway across the course. Norman, playing behind Jack, heard every single one of those roars. Norman birdied the 17th to tie Nicklaus for the lead. The green jacket was back in his grasp. Then, on 18, he pushed his approach shot into the gallery and made bogey. He lost by 1 shot to a 46-year-old who was supposed to be finished. As everyone who has ever played golf knows, luck is a part of the game, and the golf world filed this loss under bad luck. Norman did the same. He was number 1 in the world, after all. The US Open was 2 months away. He would get another chance. He didn't know it yet, but getting another chance was about to become the defining story of his career. Let's fast forward to June, where they're playing the US Open at Shinnecock Hills. Again, Norman led after 54 holes. Again, Sunday came, and again, the finish line moved. He shot 75 in the final round. Raymond Floyd went out and shot 66, almost 10 shots better.
For those paying attention, Raymond Floyd had sent a message. A game is on.
It's the kind of round that doesn't feel heroic in the moment, just relentlessly, quietly inevitable. Norman finished second in the tournament. 2 majors, 2 54-hole leads, 0 victories. But just as Norman was about to get the reputation as a guy who chokes in major tournaments, July happened. And for 1 week that year, the Shark fed. The Open Championship was at Turnberry, Scotland. Norman shot a second round 63 in brutal wind conditions, one of the greatest rounds in major championship history. He cruised to his first major title. Standing on the 18th green at Turnberry with the claret jug in his hands, it looked like the beginning of a dynasty, of the story starting to be rewritten. The monkey was off his back. The near misses were behind him. He was a major champion. For now. That year had one more major championship left. Keep that in mind, because what happened at Inverness Club in August of 1986 wasn't just another near miss. It was the moment that changed what we thought we knew about Greg Norman entirely. The PGA Championship that year was played at Inverness Club in Toledo, Ohio. Norman opened with a fantastic 65, then a 68, then a 69. 3 rounds of brilliant, controlled, dominant golf.
This is his third shot, remember, at the par 4. My goodness.
At this point, he wasn't just winning, he was making it look easy, which in a major championship is a rare and slightly terrifying thing to witness. For the 4th time that year, he held a 54-hole lead at a major championship. They started to call that the Saturday Slam. No golfer before him had ever done it. No golfer since has even come close. And with all 4 shots in his pocket going into the final day, he did what he always did. He told the press exactly how he felt. "This course sets up perfectly for me," he would tell them. Now, we shouldn't read too much into that comment, but for those of us paying attention in the humble gentleman's game of golf, it was reminiscent of Babe Ruth pointing to the outfield, calling his shot. He was right about the course. He had played it beautifully for 3 days. He had every reason for that confidence. But here's the thing about having confidence in golf and 4-shot leads. They feel enormous until they don't. Now, before we get to the final round, there's one thing you need to know about the man standing between Norman and the Wanamaker Trophy. His name was Bob Tway, and he was a 27-year-old from Oklahoma in just his 2nd full season on tour. He had already won 3 times that year, so he was no amateur. But what Tway was really known for, what people talked about when they talked about Tway, was his face. He had no expression. None. Peter Allis reportedly told people this was not a man you should play poker against. Remember that, because it matters. The final round had been suspended on Sunday due to torrential rain flooding the course. They came back on Monday morning to finish what they had started. Norman and Tway had completed only 1 hole on Sunday before play was stopped, which means Norman spent an extra night sitting with his 4-shot lead in a hotel room in Toledo, Ohio, while the rain came thundering down. When they returned Monday morning, he was solid. Through the first 10 holes of golf, the lead was still 4 shots. Par after par, the Shark was moving forward. The coronation for his victory was being prepared. The camera crews were positioning themselves and the broadcasters were writing their closing lines. Then, the 11th hole happened. Norman's approach missed the green. He couldn't get it up and down. It was a double bogey, and just like that, the lead was 2. He steadied on 12. Both men playing together made par, but on 13, Tway made a birdie while Norman made par.
Look at this. Okay, that for a 5.
Quicker than anyone had really realized, it was now a 1-shot lead, with 5 holes left to play. On the very next hole, 14, Tway made par, while Norman made a disastrous bogey. Onlookers really didn't know what to make of this all. The man who had led this tournament wire to wire was now level with a 27-year-old from Oklahoma who had never been in this position before. The 2 men halved 15. They halved 16. They halved 17. 3 consecutive holes, both men making par, neither one of them able to move. And then they walked to the 18th tee. They were all square. The Wanamaker Trophy was waiting for one of them at the end of the 18th hole. The 18th at Inverness is a short par 4, only 354 yards. Under normal circumstances, it is not a particularly threatening hole. Both men hit clean, solid drives and were in decent position for their approach shots. Tway played his approach shot first. An unlucky gust of wind caught the ball and it came up short and buried itself in the thick sand of the greenside bunker. Tway couldn't even really see the flag from where he stood to hit the shot. The advantage was Norman's. He was next to play. His approach shot landed on the green, and for one clean, perfect moment, it looked exactly right. But then, the spin took hold, and the ball crept back and back until it settled in the rough just short of the green. It was a difficult chip, to be sure, but still manageable. If Norman was to hit it well, it's still very likely that he could have chipped in, but at the very least, he'd have no problem getting in 2 shots from there. Tway, on the other hand, was in bad shape, and it would have been generous to say he could get the ball in the hole in 3 shots from where he was.
I'm looking at my shot from high grass on the side of the hill. I'm like, I can't hit it on the green. I'm thinking, where am I going to put this?
Here's where the math still favored Norman. Tway, buried in a greenside bunker with a terrible lie, was almost certainly looking at a bogey. Norman, chipping from the rough, could reasonably expect to get it close and drain his putt. Par wins the hole. Par wins the Wanamaker Trophy. That's it. Par. That's all the Shark needed to win one clean, unremarkable par. Tway, being further away from the hole, went first. He stepped into the bunker. He couldn't see the hole from where he was. He set his feet in the sand. He had no solid read on the green. He later said he wasn't even trying to hole it, just trying to get it close, trying to give himself a chance at a playoff.
My mindset was, maybe if I can just run into the bunker, hit a good bunker shot, let's make 4, he's going to get up and down, we'll go to the playoff.
He swung. Bob Tway had just made an almost impossible birdie. And then, for the first time all week, the poker face broke. The man who Peter Allis said you couldn't read jumped up and down in the sand. His caddy ran to him and nearly knocked him over. He held his arms in the air and wept. All that control, all that calm, all that composure, gone in an instant. Because even Bob Tway knew that what had just happened was not supposed to happen.
I never thought about making the shot, ever, until the ball went to the hole.
Norman stood on the fringe and took it all in. He stood there, frozen. The expression on his face was not one of panic or anger or devastation. It was something quieter and deeper than that. Something closer to a man watching the door close on a room he had been reaching towards all year. But the door wasn't completely shut. He still had one path forward: chip it in and force a playoff. He stood over the ball, took his time, and set himself.
And he proved it right there.
This for the tie. It's all over. Bob Tway has won the PGA Championship at age 27.
He missed. At the post-round press conference, a journalist asked if the monkey was on his back still. Norman looked at him. "I don't understand, you guys. Don't go saying the monkey's back on my back." Understandably, he left the room in a gloomy mood. Later that evening, a journalist named Bev Norwood was standing nearby Norman, who spoke quietly to no one in particular. So this is the game we all love. Norwood wrote later that for Norman, it was a statement. For most, it could well have been a question. But here's what most people get wrong. Most people think that bunker shot ended Greg Norman. It didn't. What came next was worse. In 1987, a journeyman named Larry Mize chipped in from 140 feet at Augusta to beat Norman in a playoff. In 1989, Norman led the Open going into a playoff and hit a bunker on the last hole and inevitably lost. In 1996, he had a 6-shot lead at the Masters with 18 holes left to play. He shot a 78, and Nick Faldo shot a 67. It's still known as the greatest collapse in major championship history. No one has ever come so close so many times and walked away with so little.
Well, of course, it happens to the most unfortunate and best loser, Greg Norman.
And yet, The Great White Shark still won 88 professional tournaments. He was ranked number 1 in the world for 331 weeks. He was, by almost every measure, the best player of his generation. Years later, reflecting on all of it, he simply said, "I've never believed in crying over spilt milk." The Great White Shark was always in the water, always hunting, always dangerous. But golf, this quiet, infuriating, beautiful game, kept finding new ways to remind him that the ocean is bigger than any one predator. The 1986 PGA Championship was the first lesson for Norman in that regard. But it would not be the last.